Thank you for coming to another awesome experience at Trajectory on every Wednesday night. So my name's Scotty Carlisle.
And I'm Jake Itamura. We're live in Eastvale, California. Any of you guys interested in checking it out? 6:30 is on Wednesday at the Staybridge Hotel.
And we do a lot of stuff. So basically we have different people that come on the show or come to the meeting. It's not always a show, but come to the meeting, and a lot of unique people, but the idea is what we can glean that will help the trajectory of somebody's life. Sometimes it has to do with nutrition, sometimes it has to do with exercise, sometimes spirituality. And today's guest is extra special because it's kind of like bridging all of different aspects of life that are the most intense. And anyway, so we'll get into that. But this is AJ Mora. And AJ, would you like to?
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, thanks guys for inviting me to be part of Trajectory. It's great to see everyone. I'm starting to familiarize myself with the live folks here, and so it's nice to make new friendships and connections with everyone. And everyone watching, this is definitely worthwhile if you're in the Eastvale area to come and check out what's happening here. Trajectory is an incredible vision, an incredible mission. I loved it the moment that I met Scotty at one of his casino nights here at the Staybridge. We kind of at the last minute was able to provide some music for him. And I'll get into how that I was involved with that in a sec, but that's how we connected. And when I heard a little bit about the vision of Trajectory, I thought, man, this is a cool cat. This is great. I'm kind of new in the Eastvale area. I joined the Chamber of Commerce not too long ago, and so I just wanted to be a little bit more involved and engaged. And so thanks, guys, for just allowing me to yak a little bit with you guys today.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
No, it was cool because it was like, synchronicity. Since we've been doing this, Jason, how many synchronicities have we had?
Lost count, but got to be approaching 100 at least. Probably.
At least, literally.
Like literally, yeah.
From different people that just happen to show up at the right time in the right place, and then they're talking
But
about
it's so crazy because literally we're like, you know what? We need a DJ for this. It's like, man, we don't really have that much time to like find a DJ. And then like check my phone, it's like, oh, there's somebody's talking. They just reached out to that, and he's a DJ.
Yeah.
Like literally, like within minutes, right? I guess.
Every time I see an announcement on Instagram or something about some event, or I get one of the emails, I immediately try to find the contact. Like, hey, if you need a DJ, I'm right here. So it's kind of like the way you kind of network, right? Try to get connected with folks, and so it was really nice to get a response and be able to do that for you.
Yeah. But that night, how many people came up and were like, "Oh, the DJ's awesome."
Oh, cool. That's
so
awesome.
Sometimes you have to be careful, right? When you just meet, but you're like, "All right, let's go," and then, but it happened to be a home run.
Good. Well, I'm glad.
Good. But then we started talking about, what you do for a living, the assumption that it was just that you do DJ stuff.
Well, let's do a backstory. And I think my goal today, as I was thinking about how do I want to approach my participation with this invitation, is to be an encouragement to everybody that's here and to everybody that's watching about this spectrum of all these things that you kind of alluded to that is part of life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? I think it's fair to say that most of us live our lives with a lot of highs and lows, but also the majority of our lives is right in the middle somewhere. And you get those peaks, and then you get those valleys. And in my life, I've just been, I consider myself really blessed. I've had a trajectory that I think has been blessed by God and my family, with my parents and my siblings, and the things that I've just been fortunate enough to participate in and be involved with. So just a quick backstory: the DJ stuff happened as a result of a big 15 minutes of fame, I guess. I don't know how old people in the audience are, people watching, but in 1992, I was part of a trio called The Movement that had a #1 record on Billboard called Jump Everybody. Does anybody remember that song? They play it at the Laker games all the time. It's the one that goes, "Are you ready? Jump everybody, jump everybody, jump." It was a #1 dance record. Yeah. So me and Richard and Hayes and I participated in producing this record, and I was 24 years old, man. I had no idea what was going on. And the next thing you know, we're touring the world, and I love DJing. And so I started DJing as an artist and produced music, and we had a little record label. We got signed with Arista Records, which was, just an incredible experience. And we got to travel like all over the world. So that opened up the door for me to get involved with music production, particularly the dance music side of things. And so I started producing stuff. We started a record label in LA called Aqua Boogie Records. That was really fun, more regional kind of dance hits and things like that. And yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of my youth and younger part of my life as a professional DJ. Now, intertwined with that, I grew up as a PK, and some of you may know what that is right out the box. But a PK is a pastor's kid, and my father was a minister, and so I had my grandmother praying for me all the time. I could feel her prayers when I was out DJing. I could feel the heat coming down on me. No, but you know, it was that layer of spirituality that some of us find more important than others, but we all kind of dance with in our lives, right? Spirituality is something that we can try to ignore, but it creeps up on us and it makes us at least acknowledge its existence and its importance. And for me, I've always kind of grown up with it, and so it was just kind of a part of my life. And you know, after the DJ stuff and all of this, I found myself at a crossroads that was really, really phenomenal. I was living in Highland Park out in the Northeast LA area. And during that time, there was a lot of gang violence going on. There was a lot of roughnecks in the early 90s between two gangs called the Avenues and Highland Park. And I was right smack in the middle of all of that. And I remember that there was this incident where this young man up the street from our house, he was an army reservist, and him and his fiance were expecting a baby, and we become really good friends. His name was Albert Miramontes. And I remember that, you know, during that time, all this stuff was going on, and I was trying to be connected with things that mattered. And I was really involved with like the neighborhood watch and just kind of trying to be, you know, proactive in my community and whatnot. And I remember one night, there was some gangsters that lived on our street. And right up the street, there was a young man who had just gotten out of prison, and there was a hit on him. And his name happened to be Albert. So these guys come up the street literally, and they see my neighbor friend come down, and they yell out, Albert. And this guy turns around, and he turned around and just blasted. He killed him right there on the spot. And I remember what an impact that made on my life, because it was like, what in the hell is going on? Right. I ran up there because his wife called, you know, back then it was just regular phones, and you got to come up here. AJ Albert's been shot. And I remember hearing the gun blast and running up the street and holding this kid in my arms. And he died right there in my arms. And it's one of those movie scene kind of things that just never leaves your mind. And the reason I bridge that very impactful story is because that was a pivot. That was kind of like a point of demarcation in my life, because I remember walking down the street. It was crazy. My dress shirt was, or the shirt I was wearing was just filled with blood. Walking down the street, and I was kind of eyeballing all the little wannabe gangsters in the neighborhood, saying, "You guys know exactly what this innocent death is all about, and we need to do something about it." So I ended up going down to this little Free Methodist church down the street from where I lived, and started banging on the door, asking the pastor if we could use the fellowship hall, because I was ready to have community meetings similar to this, just inspiring people, trying to motivate some change in our neighborhood. And this is a longer story, maybe for another podcast, but one thing led to another. I became the assistant to the youth pastor, eventually became the youth pastor, became the associate pastor, and then became the senior pastor of this little Free Methodist church, and served there for 15 years. And so, you know, I had this 15 minutes of fame. My friends went on to become great EDM rock stars, you know, playing all the big festivals or whatever. All of my peers that I kind of grew up with, I kind of left that. I had two sons early in my life, and so just dedicated to raising them, and got involved just being available to God's call on my life and ministering to people and so on and so forth. And then, you know, how many of you, and I know people are watching and I can't see your hand, but those that are here, how many of you've got a groove in your life, and then you just get a curveball from out of nowhere, and it just knocks you on your butt?
Yeah.
This is the human condition.
Yeah, right.
This is the
right.
human condition. It happens all the time. And sometimes we're blindsided by life and things, whether it's financial hardship, an illness, or sudden death in a family. And just life just all of a sudden can get sucked into this moment of just like, what going on? And without too much detail, this is an important trajectory in my life because I got married very young. I was 24 years old. And we had our first son when I was 28, and our second son 4 years after that. And my ex-wife now at the time was involved with me at the church, and it was a very powerful time. And unfortunately, there was a disconnect with us, and she ended up not being able to reconcile with our marriage, and I had to bow out of the ministry because I was now a, a, a divorced former pastor, and
Did you feel like a hypocrite? Is
it
that why?
jacked me up.
Because you felt like a hypocrite that you
Well,
couldn't
I
do
don't know.
that, or
I
what
don't know.
was
I
it?
don't know that I felt so much like a hypocrite, but I felt the guilt of having that important role and having a failed, marriage. It was sobering, and it was very tough. And I think it's important because transparency is good in a situation like this. There's two virtues that I am absolutely, and more recently even, have fallen in love with when it comes to this concept of a more deeper, meaningful understanding of spirituality, or in a very more deliberate case, a more meaningful communion and deeper relationship with God. And those two virtues are honesty and humility. If you don't have honesty, including what the hell is going on, God kind of honesty, and then the humility of saying, forgive me because obviously I don't know, but I'm trusting that you're going to help me figure it out. There's no way that you'll be able to have this dance with the transcendent or with the supernatural or with anything that's spiritual in nature. Gotta have that honesty, gotta have that humility. So I remember, I mean, I diverted for a little while. Man, I went from being a senior pastor at a church, completely devoted to this, and I had about a 7 year dark hour of the soul. I mean, I got back into the music. I started smoking. I was drinking. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. I found myself struggling. I never once rejected or rebelled against God, but I was really hurt inside about this derailment. And I even had my own like entitlement of like, why? I was like, dude, I dedicated my life to serving you. And it was a journey for me, and I think it's important to share this transparency because it helps put into focus this other part of my life that I am involved with now, because the music never left me, right? So I continued to DJ here and there. And then I remember around 2015, my dad was a hospice chaplain, and he was getting overwhelmed with a lot of patients. And obviously watching his son kind of go through this long healing process, right? He said, "Hey, how would you like to maybe help out with some of this that I'm doing?" And I said, "Wow, that's I mean, I guess that would be cool." And I was a little reluctant at first.
How old were you?
This was 2015. Geez, I'm 56 now, so do the math, whatever 2015 was. But I didn't go to school that day. I didn't go to school that
10
day.
years ago.
So yeah, 10 years. Yeah. So basically, I decided to do it reluctantly, and it was one patient, and just watching the holiness of this moment with a grandmother or mother or father, and the kids and grandkids preparing to say goodbye. For some of you who may not know, hospice is also considered palliative care, which means you're now at the point where no more treatments or therapies are available. So you're pretty much saying you are now in the most comfortable stage now of preparing to transition into death. And that's what hospice is. A lot of patients when they go on hospice, and an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or a grandchild or even a child wants to, oh, I think I could take my mom to, they immediately get discharged if they go to the hospital or try another therapy, because in hospice, it's supposed to be, that's it. We're just going to get you as comfortable as possible. So in the palliative care work, you have all these different disciplines. You've got your nurses, and you've got your social workers, and you've got your doctors, and then you have chaplain, spiritual coordinator. And at first, it was very difficult because I was going through my own healing, and really 10 years in, it's just become a new passionate part of my life. Um, I have over 56 patients that I visit throughout the month, all over town in Hemet, Menifee, Murrieta, Long Beach, Huntington Beach, Santa Ana. I mean, it's just they're all over the place. And it's just been, for me, a beautiful part of my life to be able to continue to see the things that matter the most, coming outside of a healing process of my own. And then I get to still, DJ and provide entertainment when requested and when needed. And I get a lot of word of mouth. And I'm one of the preferred vendors at The Farm in Norco. It's a really beautiful wedding venue, and I get booked every summer with them, and it's a lot of fun to do that. And then events like the one we did, and people hitting me up to provide music for their special occasions. And so this whole idea of wanting to be encouraging is, we all may have gotten here on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. We're all in this world, trying to figure it out, trying to figure it out. And we have aspirations and we have goals, and we do have these hiccups that life will throw at us. And some of us lean a little bit more into spirituality than others. And I guess my encouragement to everyone watching, in hopes that it is an encouragement, sharing just a little bit personally about my own life, is that I have a very unique opportunity to see some of the greatest moments in people's lives. Birthdays. I do little kids parties. They're the best. Some of these parents, they throw the 4-year-old party. It's for their friends, right? It's for the parents, right? Dude, these 4-year-old birthday party. I did one in San Diego at this country club, bro. It was elaborate, man, for this little 4-year-old, and it was so amazing. And watching these young parents with their little babies, and watching young couples dedicating their lives to each other and celebrating their most memorable moments, their weddings, uh, you know, um, anniversaries, corporate events where fantastic goals are achieved and people want to celebrate. Just watching all of this fun, memorable moments in people's lives and being able to contribute to that is such a cool thing to be a part of. And then almost not the exact same people. I mean, there hasn't been that strange serendipity of reconnect with maybe, someone I DJ'd for, but then going to visit someone whose mom is ready to go, or father is ready to go. Or in some cases, even young people. I had a patient that I visited today who's 39 years old, and her 15-year-old son and her 19-year-old daughter are doing the best they can to take care of their mom. That was rough. That one hits different because I'm used to visiting folks that have lived long lives, late 70s, 80s, 90s, and this 39-year-old mom is facing the end of her life. And I was there to encourage and to bring some kind of I don't know, sanity to this crazy concept of mortality that we all kind of have to realize the writings on the on the wall, right?
Yeah.
It's like if God has ever wanted to get our attention, no matter how hard he tries, from the moment you take your first breath before you take your last, it's having an honest realization that you will take your last. Mortality is probably the greatest gift God has given humanity. I heard this I saw this I heard this little video on social media where it's some extraordinary astronomical number of the possibility of people that could have been born, like in the trillions of trillions that don't. Like, in a sense, no matter how good or bad or indifferent your life is, you have won the cosmic lottery by being here, just able to breathe. And the greatest gift after that is knowing a peace that this is not all there is. And that's kind of like that's what I share with my patients. And they come from all walks of life. I've had patients that, as a spiritual counselor and spiritual coordinator, even though I personally believe in Christian faith and believe in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit as my personal journey, I have had such a beautiful opportunity to encourage with the understanding of this mysterious reality with folks from all kinds of walks of life. You know, when I visit with these patients, one of the questions is, would you like me to come back and hang out with you again in a month or so? Because it's usually once a month follow-up visits. And sometimes when you ask the question, tell me a little bit about your community of faith or your traditions of faith or your spiritual journey. I've had, Hindu families, Muslim families, Jewish families. I've had Buddhist families. And, while they recognize that my personal journey is Christian, I don't overemphasize that because this is not the role of a chaplain. While I pray for them in my heart about God's goodness and mercy, because that's all we can do. Lord have mercy is one of my favorite things to say because it is absolutely true. I've had them say, yeah, come on back. And so I go and we try to find those beautiful common denominators, the virtues that make us all um, humans and what we desire, like honesty, humility, goodness, and kindness, love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, faithfulness, self-control. I mean, these are things that any human would be it'd be pretty crazy if they said, I don't want any of that.
Right.
I think most humans would agree that that's okay. And they may not recognize that as anything necessarily spiritual, but who doesn't want more love and joy, peace and patience and goodness and faithfulness and self-control in their lives, So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys have any questions for me specifically, but I know you probably do, and I hope that the transparency allows for this to be a really human experience because I think what's important here is to recognize that I'm not really that special. I'm just as broken as anyone, and we all need to come together at there because that's where the grace of God and this idea of spirituality can even begin to seep in. This is why honesty and humility is so important, and I've become a really big fan of that. And I love music, all kinds of it. Even when it's loud. Someone me last night at the casino was like, Lord, that's too loud.
I do want to ask you though, because you have a unique experience. I mean, I know it's probably very difficult to kind of go through these things with people who are, at their end.
Yeah.
But, people at their end, I mean, a lot of them probably have the greatest like revelations and they realize things, at that time because, like you said, one of the greatest gifts is that we know that our time's going to end. But until that actually like, hey, your time's going to end, we can't get the full power of it, but they are, right? So since you have, so much experience with that, what do you think is probably the number one thing or one of the top things that you've learned from somebody in that situation?
Yeah. I had a patient way out in Palmdale, middle of nowhere. And it was the middle. This was a few years ago, and it was really, really hot. It was like in August. I mean, it was like 113 or something crazy. And I remember walking into this very humble little home, and there was no AC. I mean, if this man was on hospice, I don't know what he was going to die of, but it was going to be a heat stroke. I mean, this poor man, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it was really hot. And I walked in, and the daughter immediately was like, "Oh, wait, who are you?" And I was like, you drive all the way over there, and sometimes if you're not careful in setting up an appointment, you can drive pretty far and not get to see the patient. And so I explained, well, my name's AJ. I'm the spiritual counselor, and she goes, "Oh, well, I don't know if my dad's going to really want to talk to you. He's not very religious." That was her response. And I said, "Oh, well, do you mind if I just introduce myself?" And she goes, "Yeah, I guess, whatever." So I went in and I introduced myself, and the man began to open up. And I think he was having one of these realizations. And it's not because I have anything that was going to spark that, but it was just because the nature of the conversation was helping him realize, hey, man, from the moment we come out of our mama, it's a slippery slope, bro, all the way there, right? The writing is on the wall, right? And so in engaging in this conversation with him, you saw him be a little bit more receptive, and you kind of work your way towards, a comfortable encounter. So at one point it's like, hey, do you mind if I pray with you? Do you mind if I say a prayer with you? And yeah, absolutely. said, do you mind if I anoint your head with oil? It's just a symbol of God's spirit, of God's presence. Absolutely. And the daughter, the whole time's in the background, like washing dishes, going like, what in the heck is happening to my dad, right? And I don't have time to get into the ins and outs of what this father and daughter relationship must have been like or is or whatever, but that moment was happening and you couldn't avoid that. And that was a holy moment. And as I walked out the door after the encounter with this man, she was like, man, I can't believe that you got my dad to open up to that. And I was humbled and I was like, yeah. I said, in this particular, trajectory in life, at this juncture in life, everybody's religious. Because God begins to shine really, really bright when you have that chance. Before we go on to some other questions, this reminded me of this. I remember when I first started, I was a little presumptuous because you go and you visit a 90-year-old person and you figure, wow, they're going to go. And I would say something to the effect of, hey, when they were into the conversation and we had reached this point of comfort, I said, when you arrive there, I'll be right there. I'm right behind you. And I thought to myself, what a sarcastic, presumptuous thing to say. Bro, I could leave right now and a bus will hit me and I'll go before her or him, right? Because we don't, every day should be, I know this is cliche, but we should live each day like it's our last. Every day is a beautiful opportunity to receive the blessing of life and God's mercy.
What you got, Solomon?
So you explained earlier that you went through a painful period realizing that your marriage had ended. Looking back now, years later, do you realize that you had success in your marriage until a certain place where it ended?
Yeah, thank you. In fact, you do a lot of retrospect and inventory when you get real and honest with yourself. And we were married 18 years. It was a long time. It was a long time. And it was a derailment for me in every way, spiritually, socially. I mean, it was just, I didn't expect it. My parents have been married for 56 years. I just didn't imagine that was going to happen. But looking back, I see that, there were places where maybe my call into the ministry maybe overlooked some responsibilities for my wife. Maybe there was some tension there that created this separation. And at this point, my ex-wife and I, we're friends. We love our sons. She's remarried, and I love her husband. It's a very strange. Most people are like, "Wait, what, dude?" Yeah. That's a God thing. Only God's grace can do something like that. We have a great relationship. We're friends, and my partner is very much aware of my ex's relationship, and she's very supportive of that as well. And so I'm very grateful for the full circle that at some points in your life, you just don't see it when you're going through it, right? But you can go through and look back and say, wow, so yes, I think we had a good marriage until it was fractured and it wasn't. And there's no need to get into details, but I will say that I did my best to reconcile the what had been broken. And unfortunately, it just wasn't reconcilable, and so we decided to part. But yes, I think if I heard your question, it was a good marriage, and then it ended like a lot of marriages do. It sucks. I mean, it's not what I wanted. It's not what I signed up for. It's not what, frankly, God wants in marriage. But when it does, thank God for His mercy and grace that does bring healing and does bring reconciliation. So.
Anybody else? So, Mike, okay.
Super compelling stories. Why are you in our head telling each of our stories? Seriously. This is what I was telling Scotty. Like, literally, you took the exact same things that I told Scotty out of my, like, you said it. That, like, every moment, the next moment is not promised. So it's like, I wish more people would have the courage to tell their stories like this, like to show that how fallible the human experiences, and there is no ideal of perfection. It's all a fake creation. It's all, in my Hindu culture, what we call Maya, illusion. And we need more talks about religion and spirituality as the human experience of each one of us, irrespective of what faith we follow. And it needs to be, we need to replace all the negative narratives with these more positive, open, honest, vulnerable narratives, because they touch each of us as humans, women differently, men differently, but similar, but different, but the same. So I really hope that more men can be vulnerable and be given these vulnerable role models to show that this is very empowering as a man to open your story vulnerably, and women receive it differently, men receive it differently, but it's the human experience. So I really hope your story inspires more men. And I say men because I got some man healing to do in my life, whether it's daddy issues or any other man issues. It starts with the dad. Honestly, the dad is a role model for the children. And in our Hindu belief system, it is equally like the Christian values, very, very similar. And the role of the parents, the father's role is the father's role, the mother's role is the mother's role. And because we've lost that in our society, everything now has become politically incorrect. Everything is an ism or an ist at the end of it, and it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be. And so I really hope and wish that more people, more men are inspired to tell vulnerable stories like this openly in a comfortable, safe, intimate space like this, because this is what will heal toxic masculinity.
Thank you.
And it needs to be said by a female that we're validating.
Thank you.
Men are good. Females are good. We all carry our mommy and daddy trauma issues. Every single, we get spanked on the butt when we're babies, all of us, no matter where you were born. We come out of a mom, no matter what you believe in, who you believe in. And it is a human experience that needs to be more validated in more vulnerable but safe spaces. So thank you. Very, very brave of you to share.
Thank you. I
I
appreciate
hope
you
more
saying
men
that.
follow suit.
Thank you for saying that.
Awesome.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Yes.
So, I know. I was like, wow, I
Yeah,
lost what
Thank you.
that is 100% truth right there. Thank you for that. I was gonna say I was in the industry also where it's the end hospice, and we had a chaplain there. And my experience, because I was there about a year, and my experience was that they just want to know that they're not alone, that they have someone just next to them. And just exactly how you were explaining everything tonight. My gosh, I was like, wow, I was blown away tonight. So thank you for doing this for them in such a loving manner too. You are awesome.
Oh.
And then the other thing was I did a men's event because I had a failed marriage, and because I was spiritually, they call it spiritual abuse now. Kind of like this, like if we're bad, like how you got taken out of the church. I think to me, in my eyes, God is more hugging you even more so because of your brokenness. And they did that to my mom after 26 years of being a youth leader. My parents divorced, and because it wasn't my dad that did the cheating, I'll be honest, it was so long ago. You know, my mom was asked to leave the church, but my dad was welcome. So it hurts because, you know, it's like that should be more of, hey, we need to love on her. Like she's broken, like something's broken. Like let's be a sister in Christ to her. But nope, it was, you have a scarlet letter. So then you get, you know, like your social, everything changes, and you're like, wait, but isn't God loving? So you think all these things. And so I have a lot of funky ones with the church, but I was raised in the church Christian for 26 years. I even got a ring saying I was going to stay a virgin until I got married. I mean, the whole nine. We couldn't even clap in church, though. Yeah. It was hardcore. P.O. Box 3, City of Corona. I love you, Corona Church of Christ, but there's a lot of traumas there. So love you, man. Like
Thank
from the bottom of
you.
my heart.
Thank
Like
you.
I don't even know you, but like I love you so much, like
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you.
So thank you for tonight. I feel like I got healing today because
Awesome.
you know,
Yes.
he knows.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Derek? Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Okay.
great,
All
great
right.
job. Great
Thanks.
story.
Thanks, man.
So I'll take it a different direction.
Yeah.
Speaking of direction, speaking of trajectory, it seems like that you found yourself in a pretty good place that you're really happy with, and you know, you have your relationship with the Lord. Where do you see yourself possibly going in the future from this? Do you see this as a maybe a baseline? Do you have your sights set somewhere else, or you feel perfectly comfortable and this is where you find yourself throughout your days?
Yeah. Thank you. I guess it's important to share a recent intersection that I've had in my journey that is continuing to develop. I was born in Costa Rica. My AJ stands for Alvaro Jr. And my parents in Central American countries, you're pretty much born into a nominal Catholic experience. When my parents came to the United States when I was only 2 years old, they got involved in a Pentecostal Protestant upbringing. And so I grew up in a very charismatic environment and went to churches that eventually were very casual with the Hawaiian shirts and sandals and coffee's okay in the church and just really powerful messages and a lot of real feel good kinds of things. And it was wonderful. And I found myself then when I went to this Free Methodist church that I shared, kind of experiencing church a little bit differently because in kind of Christianese talk or theology talk, this would be considered more of a high church. The Free Methodist group is a lot less like the free-form charismatics. I learned things like the doxology and a benediction and invocation and learned a lot of new hymns and things like that and participated in a little bit more of a liturgy experience. And it was a very interesting for me because as I look in hindsight, it was part of God, I guess, giving me a very broad landscape. When I was involved in music, I got involved with a guy named Scott Blackwell, who was a former DJ out of New York, who became a Christian and started doing Christian dance music. And I was involved with producing a series called Nitro Praise, which was taking all of the worship songs and turning them into dance anthems. And it was like the hit of youth groups all over the country. And we traveled all over. So I got to see all these, we went to Lutheran churches, to a Catholic outreach. Calvary Chapel used to book us all the time. We were having these holy raves at Church on the Way in Van Nuys, Pastor Jack Hafer's church, if you know that history. So I've gotten the chance to see a lot of the beauty of the family of God and the church and all its good and dysfunctional and best efforts. So about 2 years ago, sorry, it's a long answer to the question, but it's pertinent. It's pertinent to what you're asking. About 2 years ago, my brother and I began to wonder a little bit about what I feel like something's missing in America. The sabotage I think that's occurred in Christian politics, Christian nationalism has kind of left some bad taste on people's mouths. I think men and women alike and people of all walks of faith have had to just kind of cringily walk around this idea of Jesus and politics. And I think that you see it in some churches more than in others. And I think that there's this people who are seeking genuine relationship with the transcendent, mysterious, and holy God will try to sift through some of that and start looking a little deeper. And it's not for everyone, but for those that do want to, and my brother and I were amongst that group of people, I started looking and realized that there were these three amazing branches of Christianity that have not changed. And it went from Eastern Orthodoxy to Roman Catholicism to the Protestant Reformation and all of its pieces. And having gone through all these experiences that I just shared with you, from Roman Catholic to being involved in a through Pentecostal group and being involved as a Free Methodist pastor, and then later in my life, just kind of seeking, I've just fallen in love with the ancient faith. And I've realized that nothing has changed since 33 AD to 2025 as far as the Eastern Orthodox Church is. And so I actually just took a dive and I dove into becoming more involved with that tradition of faith. And it has been overwhelming for me, life transforming for me, because it goes to some of the roots that I think Western culture has maybe just kind of been unaware of or have missed out on. I mean, this country is only 248 years old, and we think we know everything. Christianity has been around for 2025 years, and it would behoove us, if we truly want to know who Christ was and what his church was about, to look a little deeper beyond our Protestant Reformation. And that's what I did anyway. And so I find myself, long answer to your question, in continuing to grow and understand where it is that God would want me. Am I comfortable where I am? I think I'm always going to be just what's next, and willing to dive in with conviction, because one of the things that I've learned too is I want to be better at knowing why I believe something and knowing why I don't, because a lot of people believe things and they don't really know why, and a lot of people don't believe things and they don't know why.
Good answer. Long answer. Good answer. But yeah, I mean, with that being said, I see this as a great opportunity. You're very well spoken. The way that you tell your story, you can tell that you're passionate, and I can see you really being an individual that would be able to educate youth, have a great
Thank you.
impact on young people. Like you said, for so many of us as adults, we don't necessarily know why or why we do not believe in certain things, where you have a real opportunity to mold young people. And being a DJ, I think that would be a pretty
Yeah.
awesome fit for you.
Thank
They're
you.
like the cool old dude.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I wanted to just
Old for
add
sure.
one other thing that was interestingly enough that's come across through my readings this week is humility. And I just knew that was one of the things that you were going to say as one of your staples, along with honesty. And then the other thing that really just impacted me, and I never really thought about it until you said it, was just the amount of babies that are never born, and the fact that we've made it through this cosmic, I forget the word that you used.
We won the cosmic lottery,
Yeah, the
man.
cosmic lottery.
We hit the
and it, like,
jackpot,
wow, that
bro.
really puts things into
Yeah.
perspective. That should remind you why you should do as much good as you can in your life, and while of course helping everybody else along the way too. So
Thank you, brother.
yeah, so great, good job.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank
So
you.
my question, so what I've experienced in different ways is that, our dance with death, right? And I believe that we have this buffer in our mind that keeps us from really contemplating it. Like, we know we're gonna die. We know that this ain't gonna last forever, but there's this thing in the back of our mind that just pushes away. We don't you can think about it later. You can think about it later. Until something happens. For me personally, I had a nightmare. I had a dream, and it was a nightmare that I was the most god awful dream that I've ever experienced. And when I woke up, that's when it got even worse. And it was like this feeling of, when you go on the high dive and you walk and you see that, wow, that's a lot higher than I thought. And you're like, whoa, I'm just standing here, it's high, but there's that point where you have to step off, right? And I believe that we keep pushing that point back, and there's somehow, maybe by the grace of God, there's a buffer, allows us that buffer to not have to think about it until it's forced upon you, right? And then it's like, whoa, the experience I had was such a overwhelming, like, holy shit, right?
Yeah.
And when you were there with this 39-year-old, like, that's there, it's happening. And a 15 and a 19-year-old, right? What do you tell? How, I want to know what that conversation is. I want to know what is your words?
There's certain visits like this one that hit differently, because like I mentioned, most of the time it's people who've lived pretty full lives and have been blessed with the opportunity to be on their bed ready to transition. A lot of people unfortunately die very tragically and very suddenly. And so when you approach someone that's so much younger and they have two young children, it does take you aback a little bit. But my approach with that visit today was basically the normal questions to understand a little bit about how she's feeling and some of the basic things that I need to corroborate with our other disciplines. Her appetite, is she sleeping well? Are you able to move on your own? Evaluate if there's an acceptance to the diagnosis is a very important piece. And then when you get to the part where you ask, can you tell me a little bit about your traditions of faith or your spiritual journey? And they give you just enough, you can then begin to walk them through some of this important, transcending kind of understanding because they're right at the door. And so things like when she had agreed that she grew up in the, Church of God in Christ and that her faith is strong, and she rolled up her sleeve and showed me her tattoo that was very big on her arm that said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. They were immediate invitations to engage in this conversation with her. And so you begin to help her visualize the difference between the temporal and the transcendent. And you help her connect with beautiful passages like the one that says, for these light and momentary troubles are achieving for us a greater hope that far outweighs them all. Or that we don't mourn like the world does without hope. And that we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen, because what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. And it's crazy because while those verses are easy to cite and they become sort of a part of the repertoire in this particular role in my life and in this work, I know that they're powerful and that it's the best I can do in that role for them, because that's my part. I often tell my patients, look, the nurse comes and they're going to make sure you have all your medication. The social worker comes and they're going to make sure you have all your supplies. The chaplain comes, I'm just going to make sure you have peace in your heart and in your mind. And so you kind of walk them through that. At first she was a little agitated. She didn't want anything to do with me. I have to sometimes win them over a little bit. And I know my own personality, and I know that sometimes they're hard and you fight through it, and sometimes they're like, get out, and I have to get out the room. Okay. They don't want anything to do with me. Decline, right? Spiritual SC, decline. That's my note. But most of the time, even when they're agitated or a little hesitant, you get them to warm up, and then you begin to really see something supernatural happen. This is no BS, and this isn't for the cameras or to try to make anything look like I'm that sensitive or whatever. But I left that visit and I wept in my car because it was like, you could feel the weight of that. And before I left, because when I got there, it was like, Michael, she was yelling at her son and he was going up there doing the best. What can I do, mama? And, and the daughter, dude, I was just like, oh my God, why are these kids having to do this for their mom? And that's all they got, man. They got each other. And I finished the what is known as the spiritual assessment with her upstairs, and I spent the last few minutes downstairs with the kids, just telling them a lot of what I shared with you tonight. It's okay to be pissed off, man. It's okay to feel angry, hurt, and frustrated. It's okay to feel the weight of this challenge. This is not normal. It's not the way it's supposed to be. I'm so sorry. And challenging them to come before God with honesty and humility, with the honesty of why and the humility of like, help me. Because it's why, and it could be an F you, and the why isn't going anywhere, right? It's like life, we can experience it with or without this idea of God. It really is a beautiful and holy choice, because life is not going to be getting any easier if you decide to take it on your own. So if it's already tough, you might as well invite God to help you along the way, right? Um, yeah, I mean, that's basically it. Can I share a prayer, please? All right, I'm gonna read a prayer as it goes hand in hand with as an answer to your question. Before I share this prayer, this idea of peace, shalom, right, is such a powerful expression of the Almighty for humanity that he wants us to embrace, because who doesn't want peace? Who doesn't want inner peace? We say, you know, I want to be able to sleep at night. I want to be able to be at peace with myself and with the world and with my relationships. So we all want peace. I've observed recently that the peace of God is only in the present. It was there in the present past, and it will be there in the present future, but it's only in the present. And I've also observed that a lot of times we can get easily hung up with, man, I wish I would have done. God, I wonder what's going to happen tomorrow. And this dance is happening all the time. And looking back with regrets at the way things were, the way life is, or the way you wish it would have been, just opens up the floodgates to depression. And going over here, man, geez, man, I got to make more money. I got my health, my parents. God, this over here just opens up the floodgates to anxiety. And this is why so many people are suffering with depression and with anxiety. If we could be honest and evaluate that for ourselves, because this is just me making an observation for my own life and what I see in other people. If this idea that God's peace is in the present, it means we gotta stop doing that and be like right here, right? And allow there to be a sense of this moment, because every moment is as real as it is, and it's the only real moment. We all can anticipate that we're about to close now and walk out this door and go home, but we really don't know that. Right? And there's not much we could do about the argument we had with our wife or our friend or the stupid thing that happened at work or the BS that occurred last week or what. There's not much we could do about that, right? So I also try to encourage the families with that perspective. And for some of the older men, especially, they really dive into that. They're like, we need peace, because that's all they do is think about the past and the future. You know, and it's like, yeah, bro, that's a good one. I was like, I got this one guy. He's so awesome. He, you know, one of my biggest mistakes, and I've been told by my office not to do this, is give my patients my cell number. It's texts and calls, and I love it, you know, and I respond as best as I could, but you know, hey man, I'm feeling that peace right now, or bro, I think I've been looking to the left too much, and I'm full of, yeah. Thank you for the generous understanding of spirituality and all of its beautiful forms. I know that not everyone here necessarily adheres to Christian theology and Christian thought, but I think you'll appreciate the nature of this prayer, which is in that vein. This is my little Greek Orthodox Christian prayer book, and I've just discovered it recently, and there's prayers in here that are just so profound. I've always been pretty good about knowing how to pray, and I know how to say things in my own words, but there's something about the way that some of these prayers have been wordsmithed to be so profoundly deep at every level from the historical perspectives of what it's trying to convey. And I love that, because it takes away more of the pressure of me praying the right thing, you know, and more just focusing in on something. And this one is actually titled Prayer for the Terminally Ill. And when I pray this prayer with my patients, like your question asked, I always remind them to listen carefully about how inclusive this prayer is, because you can hear the we, the our, the us. And this is what it says. Lord Jesus Christ, who suffered and died for our sins that we may live. If during our life we have sinned in word, deed, or thought, forgive us in your goodness and love. All of our hope we place in you. Protect your servant and their name from all evil. We submit to your will, and into your hands we commend our souls and our bodies. for a Christian end to our lives, peaceful, without shame and suffering, and for a good account before the awesome judgment seat of Christ, we pray to you, O Lord. Bless us, be merciful to us, and grant us life eternal. Amen. Dude, I read that prayer, and it is a supernatural experience because it says everything it needs to say. And it could be receptive to some and not to others, but it has really been a beautiful way of helping bring that kind of preparation, especially when that particular thought or that particular spiritual journey and experience is being received and welcomed. If that isn't there, I still offer God's amazing peace. I still offer God's incredible provision. I usually say something to the effect, provide for them all that they need spiritually, physically, and emotionally.
So, damn, it got deep tonight. Yeah, no, this was good stuff. Dude, you never know what to expect at these meetings. And I think this in my own feeling, my own, process, this was a grand slam. And I'm very thankful and appreciative that you came
Thanks,
and
bro.
graced us with your knowledge and experience because, dude, not everybody gets to see people like that, right? And you have, I think, traveled. I saw another one right under that one that says prayers for the traveler.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and I'm listening to something else that says notes for the traveler, but it has to do with magic. But anyway, but not all of us have got to go down that road as far as you. And so I appreciate the fact that we can glean from your insights of what you've seen and experienced, and just give us a little extra depth in our life and our ability to love and the presence that we can experience from having that outlook. I think that this is right on track for what I want this whole thing to be about, personally. What about you? What do you think, Jason?
No, I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to witness this because it's very clear that what you're doing is what you're meant to do.
Thank you.
Very, very, very clear.
Thank you.
And you could feel it in the energy, you could feel it in your words, and it's an honor
Thanks,
to hear
man.
it. Yeah.
Awesome.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I would say pick up the mic and drop it, but
No.
that's probably too expensive. Sam's like,
Never know what you're gonna get when you hire random.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, and on that note, if there's anyone watching or anyone here that can use, this is a hard thing to. Hospice isn't promoted. You don't see any hospice marketing or promotion because it's such a, it's a very private and important part of life. And so nurses and our hospice liaisons, they just go to care homes and they try to recruit people whose families who need this care because no one's ready to be like, oh yeah, I can, you have to be shown and shared what this is. So if you or anyone watching knows a friend or someone who is in need of palliative care, please reach out to the trajectory page or let us know. I've got some things for us here if you're interested in knowing at least one of the offices that I work with, because I do believe that hospice is a beautiful field in the health industry, and it's there to be caring for those who have reached this point of transition in their lives. And so it's a very holy and beautiful work. And so I'm very grateful to be a part of it. And then, of course, I know we've talked a little bit more about hospice than this, but if you've got an event or a party, woo, I'm your man. We will boogie. Yeah, no. Yeah, that's just like bestladjservices.com.
All right.
That's how I roll.
Tony.
Yeah, just.
I can.
Everything you said is music to our ears.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
I've been quiet all night and, just taking this all in because, and I like how you describe all of the, um, um, religious, religions or spiritualities. And there are, and my beliefs are also that they're all just for whoever it is, whether you be Hindu, whatever, it's just to bring you closer to the Lord. And that's for everyone. But in relation to the palliative care, I'm not one to decide or to say, but I know you want to be one there for someone that's in that position. But see, for me, how do you determine? How do you decide? I mean, it's like I have a loved one right now, my nephew. He's in Kentucky with my sister, and she's there caring for him, and it's incredible what he's recovering from a flesh-eating disease, but he's really going through it, and and I I've seen him at his worst. I had an opportunity to visit him, but he's he's holding on. He's there. He's talking. I mean, he's going back and forth with feeding tubes and whatnot. But where do you decide? I know you need to plan for the future, and yeah, it's like right now, my sister, she's like, she wants to do a fast, and she wants to pray for him, but he's been in this condition for over a year, and I just concerned, even though I have a spiritual leader that has prayed for him, prayed for me, and everyone who was dealing with cancer and gone through surgery, and for 3 years gone through this thing, and she just passed. And and I when I seen her, or was able to meet with her, I seen where she was there holding on, just being a force, for the Lord, and we lose her, and not really lose her. She goes to a better place, and I'm just like, how is my nephew having to go through this? Who is this for? I know that it's for some things, for someone, for my sister, for me to gain my, to build my faith, but it's the same thing. But how do you, just in dealing with it? I know you being there for the individuals, but how do you decide, or
One of,
how do you
yeah,
come to grips with?
there's there's two groups that are being visited when you go to someone who's in palliative care: the patient and the patient caregiver, or the family. And so in this particular case, you're the family of your nephew who's suffering and going through these experiences right now. And I guess if I understand your question correctly, you are there to support your sister and to support your nephew with encouragement until that moment comes. If there are treatments that are keeping him alive and are still there therapeutically for him to potentially even change his health in the right direction, then please continue to do those things. At the moment that you feel like things are not working and he's possibly suffering more than anything, because I've had plenty of unfortunate conversations with sons and daughters who want to keep their mother alive, and they think that by forcing the food down her mouth, it's a good thing because it gives her nourishment, and she's sitting there choking, and it's not a good thing. So there's some really ugly conversations that have to do with just quality of life that palliative care provides the nurture of comfort for. So I think at some point your sister will have to make a determination of whether or not your nephew has the quality of life that would permit more of these kinds of therapies to keep him sustained and better. And when that decision comes, I would hope and pray that his transition would be peaceful and that it would be honoring to him and his life, and that it would somehow, because there's no doubt about the sadness of losing someone, that is not out the window just because we're expecting some beautiful place that we go to. There's a real detachment that happens. When that verse that I said, we do not mourn like the world does that has no hope, doesn't say we do not mourn. We just have a mourning that gives us a sense of the sorrow is not forever, because hopefully we're all on that same trajectory, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. I don't know if you heard yourself, but this is for you to be God for your sister, because that's the way God works. He works through people. We get into these strange conversations with people about, man, if God was so loving and so good, why does he allow this, that, and that? I'm like, that's not God's fault. That's our fault. God's not letting kids starve. We're greedy and we don't feed people. We need better mental health. We need better love and care for others. We need more compassion and forgiveness. These are the attributes and superpowers God has given humanity to be his hands and feet. God's not evil. God is good. He empowered all of us to be there for each other. We're kind of screwed up, right? We dare to say, God, you should start getting rid of the evil people in the world. Be careful, he doesn't start with you. I'm not going there because I'll be the first one to get hit by a lightning rod, bro. Bro, you're the first one to go, you greedy son of a, yeah. But it's so yeah, love on your sister, love on your nephew. That's God's love through you. And it's a beautiful thing.
And with that thought,
Yeah,
we will
Tony.
bring it home.
Well, thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. My pleasure.
Yeah. Tequila shots and